The big Bloodline moment that a lot of people were waiting for finally happened, so we'll see where that story will head to next. We'll also see what's going on with Tiffany Stratton, Jimmy Uso, and more. Starting things off with some very eye-opening developments in the Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax storyline. This storyline between these two superstars appears to be using a classic narrative that we've seen plenty of times over the last few years. And that's the narrative of having two close individuals who claim to be the best of friends, and how nothing can divide them from each other, but how they seem to quietly distrust each other and let a title or something else get in the way of their friendship. The best storyline example in recent memory that used this structure was Sasha Banks versus Bayley in 2020, and we're even seeing some of it right now with Finn Balor and Damian Priest. In both of those cases, you had pairs of superstars who were very close, but eventually fell apart in an ugly manner because of the circumstances that were surrounding them. For Bayley and Sasha, Bayley basically turned on Sasha out of straight paranoia that Sasha would turn on her and steal the title. So Bayley struck first to protect her title reign, but ruined their on-screen relationship. And in Finn Balor and Damian's situation, that fell apart because of the world title and jealousy getting in the way of their brotherhood. So we can surely expect Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax's story to go down a very similar path to those few examples. But what was quite surprising through the pacing of the show was how fast this storyline is apparently unfolding. The August 16th edition of SmackDown featured Tiffany Stratton setting up a celebration ceremony for Nia Jax's title reign, but almost instantly, Nia turns to Tiffany and complains about how this ceremony isn't really her style. Nia explained how she's all about being fierce and dominant, so the unicorn balloons that Tiffany had in the ring didn't really match that. So this was an interesting line by Nia Jax, because it can allude to the fact that potentially Tiffany and Nia's characters don't really know each other as well as they claim to. If Tiffany and Nia really were close, Tiffany's party theming would have been more on point. So Nia making that complaint right there shows that Tiffany and herself aren't exactly on the same page. But the next part is what has fans feeling a little bit mixed. Nia turns to Tiffany right away and very strongly demands for her to bow down just out of nowhere. Tiffany hesitated to bow down and tried to find an excuse to have Pretty Deadly bow down first and go through with their musical act before she bowed down. But that celebration ended up getting interrupted by Mia Yim. So Tiffany basically escaped that segment without needing to bow down. So they established some disconnection and tension there with the both of them, with that wrong party theming and Tiffany's hesitation to bow down to Nia. But what has fans a bit mixed about that bowing down portion of the segment? It just seems a tad rushed. Nia just became champion barely a few weeks ago. Tiffany already proved herself to Nia by assisting her in winning the title with the fake cash-in at SummerSlam. So for Nia to be so suspicious and demand more acknowledgement so soon, almost right away after Tiffany just helped her, does feel a bit weird and out of place. Just feels like it's way too soon for that moment like that. It would be like if Roman Reigns put Sami Zayn through a rough moment of acknowledging him right away in week 1 of Sami joining the Bloodline story. If they did it like that, then that probably would have been less impactful because there was no time to develop the story or truly build any connection there. That's why the way they did it was so perfect in Roman and Sami's case, because Roman let him in and let Sami slide for several months, and then left the big bow down segment, so to speak, for the end of the story, and it worked perfectly. So that's why the Nia Jax bow down demand just felt so random and out of place, because nothing has truly happened in this story to really deserve that moment. Tiffany helped Nia win the title, set up the celebration, has not cashed in, and has kept her word so far. So it just didn't make that much sense to have that moment this early on. What would have made that moment a bit better was if Tiffany was in fact acting weird or did legitimately try cashing in on Nia Jax. Now, in that case, it would make a lot of sense for Nia to scold Tiffany for that and demand the bow down under those circumstances. But the way the things unfolded on August 16th just felt a bit uncalled for, because Tiffany hadn't done anything over the top suspicious as of late. So why would Nia react like that to someone who claims is her best friend? So that was the main issue there. You can understand what they were going for, but it just seems like it's too soon. You look at examples we mentioned earlier, Sasha versus Bayley and Damian versus Finn, and it was both very nice slow burning and build up in those situations. So the Nia and Tiffany storyline is intriguing. It's a great premise to have a champion whose right hand is also the Money in the Bank contract holder, but there really needs to be a bit more substance happening there before Nia just randomly confronts Tiffany like that out of nowhere. So maybe they'll lean away from the bowing down situation for the time being, let some weeks go by, but Nia should come back around and demand that bow down again from Tiffany Stratton. And it'll be interesting to see how she gets herself out of that for a second time. The August 16th edition of SmackDown also featured Roman Reigns temporarily reuniting with his Ula Fala after taking out Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. It was an easier task this week for Roman since Tonga Loa wasn't there, so just a 2-on-1 situation that he was able to overcome and get the Ula Fala back. But the reunion was cut short after Jacob Fatu made his return to fully take out Roman Reigns and plant the Ula Fala back on Solo Sikoa. Jacob was still wearing his walking boot during this segment, likely indicating that he's still recovering. But even on one leg, Jacob didn't struggle at all to take out Roman. We've been talking about how Jacob has been Solo's saving grace for several weeks in a row, and that theme once again continues with Jacob saving the day against the biggest challenge yet, Roman Reigns. A lot of fans were a bit upset with how the segment played out because a lot of fans wanted to see Jimmy return in that spot to help out Roman. That moment will still happen, but similar to what we were just talking about with Tiffany and Nia, you don't want to just rush through the whole story right away. The pacing of the Roman Reigns and Bloodline story is going well so far. Roman got the upper hand in back-to-back weeks following his return, and now the pendulum is swinging back to Solo's side due to Jacob Fatu. So it's nice to have that back-and-forth exchange of small wins and losses on both sides. Roman needed to go through this beatdown for the sake of the story, and for his character to get that rude awakening that he can't do this all on his own after all. So now is when Roman Reigns will go back to the drawing board and will look into bringing Jimmy back. Jimmy will undoubtedly be one of the very first members that Roman brings back, so Jimmy should be next in line on the return list. So maybe Roman disappears for a few weeks to come back with those reinforcements and adjustments, and then from there, maybe they realize that 2 isn't even enough, and that's when they'll start exploring even more additions. But Roman was just introduced to Jacob in a big way, and that's absolutely going to make Roman rethink this entire approach for sure. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.